Welcome back, everyone, to Aspire to Lead, where we will be discussing the visions, inspirations, and experiences from top educational leaders. My name is Joshua Stamper, and you can connect with me on Twitter or on Instagram at Joshua_Stamper. Aspire leaders and Teach Better family, thank you so much for joining once again this week. I have a wonderful guest, Beighle, with me. He is a recognized expert on physical education. And for anyone that has read my book, Aspire to Lead, or have listened to this podcast before, you know that I have a special place in my heart for physical education because as a student, one, I hated school. Two, I didn't want to go. But three, the saving grace was two classes. It was my art classes and my PE courses. And that was the only reason I went to school. So super excited about this conversation. And with that, Aaron, thank you so much for joining me on Aspire to Lead.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share. And I'm happy that you love PE. Sad that was the only reason you wanted to go to school, but happy that you love physical education. That's great.
Yeah. I could do a deep dive about, the reasons it didn't work for me. And we'll kind of dig into that a little bit more because I really do feel strongly and have been an advocate of this program for as long as I've been in education as an elective teacher, but then also as an administrator. So super pumped about the content and the wisdom that you're going to provide our listeners. But before we do that, Aaron, I would love for you just to share a little bit about yourself, about your educational and leadership journey.
Yeah, I am a a husband first, I guess, and then a dad of four. We're a blended family. And I am originally from, I guess, a little bit of everywhere, but Dayton, Ohio is kind of where I call home, northwest of Dayton, about 45 minutes. A little town called Pittsburgh, if anybody's ever heard of it. And then I went to NKU, Northern Kentucky University. I had no intentions of going to college. And my dad said, "You're going to college." And I said, "Okay." And I switched around a few majors and I was able to squeeze a 4-year degree into 6 years. I was kind of finding myself and I was a super senior. Then I went to Texas Christian University. My goal was to get every kid fit. So I went to Texas Christian University and got my master's degree in exercise physiology. And I went to a workshop by a gentleman named Dr. Bob Pengrazy. And about 5 minutes into this workshop, I said, "That's what I want to do." And so I went up and talked to him afterwards, and he said, "Great, come out and see me at Arizona State." And I said, "Okay." So I went out to Arizona State, and I don't know why he didn't ask me this the first time. I tease him about it to this day. He said, "Great, love to have you in the doctoral program, but you haven't taught." And I said, "Nope." And he said, "Well, you need to teach." So this was back before internet. So I went back and made phone calls to every school I could in Dallas, Texas, and got a job. And I taught at the Episcopal School of Dallas. And then I went to Arizona State University and got my doctorate working with Bob Pengrazy. And it was the most phenomenal 3 years of immersion in my life. I taught at a university in California for a year. And then I've been at University of Kentucky preparing teachers, working with the current teachers for the last 20 years, doing research, writing books, lots of time in the schools, getting my lunch eaten by kindergartners, which is very humbling and a great experience. So that's kind of where I am now. And I enjoy pushing the field forward, but also learning from teachers as well and picking up those ideas and continuing to lead forward as we work to continue to make physical education better.
Yeah, for sure. And so I want to pick your brain a little bit because I know that you've got a program that you've been working with as far as school-based physical activity programs. And I think that's so important because, I want to touch on my own experience as a student. I think one of the reasons I hated school so much was because I was sitting still for large periods of time and I was itching to move. And physical education gave me that opportunity. And also, and maybe it's a guy thing or maybe it's just my own personality, but I love competition. So, having competitive feel, but then also moving my body where all of my other classes was like, sit down, shut up, sit in that chair for 45 minutes to 60 minutes. And I would go crazy. I literally would get antsy still to this day as an adult. And I don't have like ADHD or anything like that, but I just can't sit still for long periods of time. So like, for instance, last night I was at a band concert for my son for 2 hours. Beautiful program. They did a wonderful job, but I mean, I was all over my chair because I couldn't sit still for that long. So I want to know, one, what's going on with this school-based physical activity program, what it's all about, but then also why is it so important for our students to be moving throughout the day?
Yeah, when you talk about it and think about it, it makes sense. Where do you want the blood when you want your brain working? And it makes sense. You want it in your head, and when you sit, it goes somewhere else, and it's pooling in your thighs and in your butt, and that's not where we want it. I think if you think about most kids, they don't sit well, and we work it out of them basically in education. Is we train them to sit and sit and sit and sit, and to be able to sit for long periods of time. And I'm like you, I'm one of these. If I was at that concert, I would have been standing up in the back because I just can't do it. So I think as a society, we work that out of kids over time because, think about it. Kindergarten, you have the rug where all the students sit and they do all these different things. And then by fifth grade, it's like sit in rows. And, we haven't changed that much. If you look back at pictures of education in the 40s or 50s or 20s, I mean, it was everybody sitting in a row, and it hasn't evolved. And I think as we start to learn more about this, I think that's what the role that we can play is to, and use it. There's more and more research now on play. I can't think of an author, bought a book on play and how that helps us learn and in being engaged in the activities and getting that blood flowing. And if you go to a workshop and the person as an adult, so a lot of teachers and leaders listening to this, if you go to a workshop and they make you sit for 6 hours, it takes forever for that workshop. But if you're up and engaged and you do carousels and you do breaks and you do walkie-talkies where you're talking and you do those types of things, it just makes a lot of sense. And that time just flies by. You remember the things you did, and it wasn't this death by PowerPoint experience. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do with this. I've been working with it since 2007, the Comprehensive School Physical Activity Programs that came out through our national organization, and there've been lots of research and work done on that. And it's this idea of trying to figure out where we can integrate physical activity into the school day. Of course, we have our missions of learning and educating, but it's two sides of the same coin. We can do both. And I think some of the studies that we've done, we had teachers tell us that when we started with them, they didn't really want to do our intervention. They didn't want to do classroom breaks. They didn't want to try and offer more recess. And the principal supported us. And afterwards, the teacher said, we don't have time not to do this now. And the impact that you see on simple things like a little bit more time at recess or sitting on a resistance ball, that type of impact is tremendous. And we're seeing more and more of it, which is great.
Okay, I want to do a little bit deeper dive here because I know some administrators have said, yes, this is something that needs to be done. We need to find ways to implement this. And they may not even understand what's the starting point. So, for even I was an administrator for middle school, and it was very obvious that our middle schoolers needed to have an opportunity and time to move their bodies beyond just one PE class. And, some of those 7th and 8th graders, if they didn't have that as an elective, if it wasn't required of them, they may not even have that in their schedule. And so they were sitting for almost the entire day. And so it was obvious that we need to find some ways to kind of implement this in a variety of ways within maybe our core classes or some of the other electives, not just PE. So, what are some things that our leaders can do to, do exactly what you're saying, provide physical activities within other classrooms?
Right. And the classroom piece is the one that, because it's changed. When I was trained as a physical educator, kids sitting down scared me to death. And as most classroom teachers, kids moving in their classrooms scares them to death.
Correct.
Because it's like, what are they going to do? And it's just a matter of starting simple with even a 5-minute stretching break that has nothing to do with the content. There's 2 ways you can do it. One is to integrate academic content. For example, if you're looking at leaves and students are exploring something, plants, to go outside and walk and have them experience it and actually feel the stuff, feel the leaves, feel these, what it feels like and all those types of things. I know nothing about that other than I had a leaf collection in 7th grade, but that's one way, integrating academic content. The other way is just to get up, to get them active, to give their brain brain break is a controversial term. I don't know. I don't fully understand it all, but I use it all the time. But to give them some way to get that oxygen going, get their bodies moving. And if it's just standing up and stretching, or just giving them the freedom to say, you know what, you can stand up in the back if you want, if you need that, and giving the students the choice. I know of schools that are using sensory hallways, but it's not a sensory hallway in the sense it's physical activity out in the hallway we were getting ready to do this study and it fell through because of COVID. But we were going to give students the opportunity, if they felt they needed it for whatever reason, they could leave the room and go do the hallway activities, whether it's moving your hands on the hallway, like walking your hands or doing hopping or hopscotch or whatever it was. And then they could come back. It gives the students the freedom to do that. And you have to let students know, I trust you. I trust that you're going to make this decision. Now, if I go out in the hallway and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, then there's a component of what we're teaching about trust and those types of things. So letting students have that autonomy to do that and the choice to do that when they needed it. So there's so much that goes on. I mean, there's simple activities like if you give answers and if it's true, they jump up and down, and if it's false, they twist. I mean, something simple like that,
right? All
the way up to providing this whole different approach to how you're doing schooling, and that the students go out and can choose their own activity break when they need it. So this is where we've come from. We've come from, trying to working with teachers to integrate math with, we brought teachers in and had the core content that they were supposed to teach related to math, and they brainstormed ideas, and they had all kinds of ideas, and we did the research and it was effective. So from that very simple idea to pretty complex how you're doing schools and overriding your whole schooling process are out there. And it's an option that beyond just having physical education.
So I've seen this firsthand. My son, thank goodness, is at a school where the principal believes this. And so it's not like put a bubble in your mouth, walk in a straight line. They actually, when they are transitioning, they actually are having opportunities, like you said, to do various activities in the hallway to kind of get that energy out. And I know my son participates in that often.
Yeah. And I think the leadership support to say, I trust, again, it goes back to this. I just read a book. I'm reading it again called Trust and Inspire, and it has to do with trusting, as a leader, trusting people. And I think that's what we have to do as students. And we have to do that as leaders as well, to tell the teachers, I trust you that you're going to use this the best way that you can. We're going to help you with strategies, and we're going to see how this works and brainstorm it. And that approach, this whole, I don't know who said it. I heard it a long time ago, teaching with wonder. And it's the same idea. I wonder what would happen if we taught this activity and all the students are up moving. And is it scary? Yep. Tell your students, this scares me. This is scary to me to see this. And but I trust you. I think we can do this. Let's try it and see. Those are the experiences they're going to remember. 100%, that's the stuff they're going to remember. And I tell PE teachers this all the time, as that engaging, thoughtful things that we do beyond just the normal, let's do a jump rope lesson. Your jump rope lesson is probably not going to change a life, and they're not going to remember it. But some unique thing you do, experiences, or I'll talk about this later, maybe with connecting with students, that's what they're going to remember. And again, it's a little bit uncomfortable. It's a lot uncomfortable, frankly, because it's totally different than how we've done education. But I think there's something there for moving forward.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcasts. Now let's get back to the episode.
I know we kind of had a grand scheme of things of like a whole campus level viewpoint, right, but I would like to hone in on, the physical education classes. I know that you're helping, future PE teachers, and there's sometimes a stigma about the course, about the instructors, about the value in the class. But I want to know, when you're preparing our physical education teachers for the future, what are some things that you're trying to instill in them?
Well, this is interesting because it's evolved throughout my career, and I write a textbook called Dynamic Physical Education. I'm a first author on it, lead author on it now. It's been around for 60 some years. If you can't see me, I haven't been around that long. So it was started back in 68 or so by a guy named Vic Dower, and then Bob Pangrazi, who I mentioned earlier, was a co-author, and now I'm the lead author. And it will always be Vic Dower and Bob Pangrazi's book. It's not my book.
Sure.
But we use that book as the foundation, and it's tough, because when you have in a university classroom, when you have a 22-year-old or a 21-year-old, and you're trying to explain to them the importance of what we're doing in physical education, most of what they have and what they can refer to is their own experiences, which may or may not have been positive. So I usually start off all of my classes by them expressing the good, bad, and the ugly, what they liked, didn't like, and their experiences. So I have an idea where they come from. And then I really emphasize from about day one of having them in a program, the importance of connection. And that we will discuss how do you teach rolling and how do you teach throwing and how do you teach parkour. We'll discuss that in this program, but it's all built on the foundation of you being able to connect with your students. So to foster that, the first class we have, they go out to schools every Friday and we assign them a location. And we used to have them describe the whole lesson and what the teacher did and all these kinds of things. And I've scrapped that. And now I have them, they have to identify 3 kids, tell me 3 kids' names, not last names, just first names, and 3 unique things about that child that we cannot see. And I don't want to say, oh, they have a Spider-Man shirt or, those types of things. I want them to get around it. Every day they go out, they're supposed to identify 3 new kids and 3 new things. And I talk about that in class because I want that to be their focus. And then my wife's a professor as well. I shoot my head over there because she's usually sitting right there. We get to know and connect with our students as much as we can because we value this and we think this is what they need to know and be modeled for them. So we connect them. We go to their events. We contribute to, if they have a Dance Blue is a big charity event, fundraiser here on campus. If they're in other fundraisers, if they're in other community organizations, if they have activities, we try to go as much as we can. And I think that's important. And that's the message we send to our students. And that's the last thing I talk to them about before they go off to student teach, again, is this idea of connect. Your lessons, they're there. You know it now. You know how to teach parkour now, but it's not going to mean anything if you haven't connected with your students. And I think it was Teddy Roosevelt that said students don't care how much they know until they know how much you care. Somebody said that, but it's that idea that we have to dig in. And that's important. I mean, it's not in the book. It's not in the book, but we talk about the importance of connections, but it's so important for them to experience that and to have that as this above and beyond what they read in a textbook.
Oh, for sure. And I can say firsthand that if I knew a teacher cared about me, I would do everything for him. I'd run through a wall for him. And my grades reflected that. My mom knew exactly which teacher I loved and
Right.
which ones I hated based on my grades.
And it's the same thing as adults. Your leader, your mentor, your supervisor that cares about you and asks more than, where's that lesson plan? How come your objective didn't, or your outcome didn't start with I can this year, or whatever we changed to? That's important. But the first piece is to connect. I had a colleague years ago started a new job supervising 10 faculty members. And he asked me, he said, what's the best way I can, because I don't agree with the way they're doing physical education. What's the best way I can get them to change? And I said, well, I would take about a year to get to know them as a human being and then start the process of looking at physical education, because you can go in all you want with your plan for physical education and they're not going to buy in unless they buy into you as a leader.
True.
And it takes time. I mean, that's not the answer he wanted, I'm sure. And I don't know what he ended up doing, but you have to build that connection first, or it's not going to help. It's not going to happen.
For sure. So Aaron, I know, you've talked about the connection first, you talked about, teaching with wonder, but you also, talked about your book, Dynamic Physical Education for Elementary School Children. Will you just share about that resource and how it may better, those who are listening?
Yeah. Again, it's been around. It started off as a grant back in 1968, and Vic Dower went to Europe and spent, I think, 6 months there. So there's a big influence on, and a lot of there's sports and things, but it's a lot of body management, those types of things in the book. So the first half of the book is not theory, but it's what's the purpose of physical education? Where have we come from as physical educators? How do you create a lesson? How do you create a curriculum? Those types of things. And then the back half is how do you implement all of that? And we spend a great deal of time, and I've got my doctorate with Pengrazi. He believes this as well, but that how we work with students in the environment, whether you call it classroom management, protocol, whatever you want to call it, is extremely important because it makes our lessons much more efficient. So kids can get more activity, but also it makes it more efficient because that allows you time to connect with your students. So we spend a lot of time with that. And we also have a website that goes with the book. So the most recent edition of the book is the 20th edition. And one of the things we added in the 20th edition was QR codes. in the book. So if you're reading about how do I get kids to listen to me, how do I get kids and partners, you can screenshot it on your phone and it'll lead you right to a video that has a teacher doing exactly what we wrote about. And what we found over the course I've been involved since the 15th edition is some of this stuff that we're talking about is really hard to write about and really bring it to life. So the videos that come from the website called Dynamic PEASAP lead that and pull that content and bring it to life so you can click on it and read it and see it. And it's a QR code. Now, again, where QR codes go, who knows, but this edition, that works. And the Dynamic PEASAP website has tons more information than just the videos. There's lesson plans, there's teaching materials, there's instruction materials. So you pull up an activity and you're like, that's what I want to do. And you can organize it by standard and outcome and all the tons of great information on there. And so that piece is that. And then we have on a YouTube page, because it makes it a little easier to get to, all the videos are on there as well. So if you go to YouTube and just search that Dynamic PEASAP, it will come up as well. So that's kind of where the book is it's one of these trying to prepare teachers but knowing that they're 22 years old, knowing that they don't have a lot of experience. How do we to let them see that? I mean, I'm a firm believer that student teaching is by far the most important part of the teacher preparation process. And for that reason, we spend a ton of time with our cooperating teachers and making that as seamless as we can. I was talking the other day, I trust our student cooperating teachers more than I trust myself. I do with preparing teachers because they do such a phenomenal job. And so that's kind of, we take the book when they're 19 years old and give them some exposure, seeing some videos, getting some time in schools, hearing from us in classes, and then make that seamless transition into their student teaching is very rewarding. I love it. I love training teachers and working with teachers, and it just, I never dread getting up on Monday morning for class. And I just, feeding from students is so great. I mean, with their energy they bring, and it's amazing. The freshmen every year are 18 years old and they have that energy and I get older, but they stay 18 and it's great because you have to, I mean, we have two 18-year-olds now. Four of our girls, two of them are 18. So we have two that I know what they're coming from and I know what their parents think. So it's going to be an interesting change in my teaching as well.
Yeah, that energy is contagious. And man, it's one thing to learn it from a book. It's another from videos, but it's another to actually stand there in front of students and learn from your cooperative teacher. And that is the best lesson you can possibly get as a young teacher. So I also want to discuss something that you're passionate about too, Aaron, which is simplifying physical education. I want to know your thoughts on that, because when I think of physical education, and maybe this is my own bias, I don't think of anything complex about it. But right. I want to know from your mind, what does simplifying physical education mean to you?
Yeah, and it's something I've been digging into lately in the last, I guess, since COVID really is. I read a quote and it talked about if we can't explain it to a 5-year-old, we really don't understand it. And so it is not complex physical education. I think we make it very complex and we worry about grade level outcomes and assessments and the formative and all these things that we get so lost in the shuffle of what we're doing and really don't spend much time on, did I connect with that kid? Did I say his name at all? And we know, as you're well aware, that there are kids in middle school that can go through an entire day and no one says their name. And that's not a good way to spend your day. And understanding that bigger picture, I think, helps us make it simple. And one of the things we've been working with and trying to integrate is this idea of what do you like as far as physical activity and why do you like it? And that to me helps students for the rest of their lives. Yeah, I can teach kids how to throw. I can teach kids activities that they may not ever play the rest of their lives. But if I can get them to understand what they like and expose them to a variety of activities, okay, this is what you like. Why do you like that? For you, it was because it was competitive. Some students don't like competition. They despise it. And some students love any activity with a ball. Some students don't like any activity with a ball. I have one, my youngest does not like, she's a sophomore in high school, anything to do with the ball. She doesn't want anything to do with it. And it's just the way she's always been. And that's okay. But is it competition? Is it just you like to be with your friends? She's very social. She would rather do something with a friend than by herself. And helping students understand that's who they are, but also helping them understand other kids like activities for different reasons. And that ability to empathize and say, wow, I don't like competition, but my friends do. So maybe I'll do competition, competitive activities sometimes. But to really understand that if we're really going to be about making physical activity meaningful and something that's important in their life, which is kind of what the simplicity of physical education is, we want them to have physical activity important in their life, then they need to understand what they like and why they like it. And so that's something regardless of what you're teaching. And then there's a whole folding over of concept-based physical education or teaching concepts and inquiry and UDL and all those types of things that trying to fold into that novelty as well, which it's a work in progress. But I think that goes against what I just said. If we can keep it back to the simple, what do I like and why do I like it, then that helps with our guiding our physical education.
No, but it should be evolving. I mean,
yeah, I'm still thinking about it. I don't know.
Yeah,
you talk to me 2 years from now, I could say that's the dumbest idea ever. Here's what I'm thinking. And again, this is kind of the nerdiness of thinking about physical education and what we need to do.
And I think that's my biggest complaint about education is that sometimes I feel like education is stagnant when everything else is moving at a rapid pace. And it's like, no, it should be evolving. So, and that shouldn't stop at the campus level. It should be subject dependent also.
And I have a picture in one of my PowerPoints from the 1920 or so of a group of girls standing in skirts, standing in lines, doing calisthenics. And less than a year ago, I walked into a gym. They weren't in skirts and it was co-ed, but it was boys and girls standing in a line doing calisthenics. And it's like, man, this is 100 years ago. And we haven't really, we've evolved in our thinking, but has our practice changed? And that's kind of the idea of we really focus on doing things better, but we really struggle focusing on doing better things. And that's where the uncomfortableness comes from, I think.
Yeah. Well, thankfully we got you, Aaron, to challenge those thoughts, experiment and try to figure it out.
Right. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. That statement's not to put any pressure. I wanted to, compliment you on that, because I do think there needs to be more folks out there, not only teaching those who are getting into those programs as far as becoming a teacher, but then also saying, okay, this is a template, but this shouldn't be the end all be all. There might be a better way to do it. So can we at least have that thought process? And
just, again, teaching with wonder. I challenged a student teacher this semester to say, I wonder 3 times during a lesson as before he started his instruction. Like, I wonder what would happen if, and just see what happens. It was uncomfortable for him, but that's all right.
Right. Experiment and see what sticks, what works. And if it doesn't, don't beat yourself up over that. At least you took the first step of trying something new. And so I think that can go to leaders too, not just physical education.
Right.
So with that thought process, Aaron, I'd love for you to provide some advice. So for those who are listening, if they're an aspiring leader or maybe they're a current leader on their campus or in their district, what is one piece of advice you would give them that they could do tomorrow or next week to enhance their leadership journey?
I'm going to repeat myself, but I would say be intentional about connecting with everyone. Now, not every day, but everyone. Say hi, know their names, smile so much people wonder what you're up to. Those types of things. I say that all the time. Like, just like, what's that P? Wow, he smiles all the time. Yep, I don't know what he's up to, but smile so much that they wonder and connect, find out who they are, and then just teach or lead with wonder, as we just talked about. Try new ideas. It's great to try new ideas and be willing to say, nope, that didn't work. And kind of, some people, sometimes it takes getting rid of your own ego, which I've had to do many times in my career, and say that didn't work. And that's okay. But I'm better for it. And I've changed because of it. And I think that's pushing forward. So my 2 things would be intentional about connection and intentional about wondering.
It's funny. I had an administrator, and I'll shout him out, Chuck Moss. He was talking about that when he first was on the campus, that he brought a lot of energy, a lot of smiling to the campus, a lot of happiness in regards to being very intentional about that. And the staff member was like, well, we thought it was fake. But then we got to know you, and how some leaders, some administrators have a mask, right? You have a certain persona that you put out there, maybe in a staff meeting. However, when you're in the front office, you might be very, very different. So that's kind of the thought process. But no, that's just genuinely what he was.
And it's just interesting that's the default of teachers thinking it's a mask. And and it's the kind of the same thing we're trying to get rid of in physical education, is the stigma of we're about push-ups and running the mile. It's much more than that. And
The
and
fitness
that takes
brand.
time to get rid of that stigma. Yeah, exactly. It takes time to get rid of
Yeah.
that. And yeah, don't even get me started on the mile run and all that fun stuff. I could go on forever. I know
I'm going to get you charged up, Aaron.
Yeah, you will. But yeah, it does take that. It takes time for change, and that's, I'll be honest, it's one of my downfalls. I'm a very impatient person, personally and professionally, and understanding that it just takes time. I mean, I've got all these ideas, and I don't get to put them in the book for another 3 years because it comes out every 3 years. So it's like, okay, somebody's got to hear them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, for those who don't want to wait 3 years and they want to connect with you in some way about this topic, because it's very important. And I hope everyone that's listening not only picks up the book, but connects with Aaron. So how may they do that, Aaron, to connect with you on social media?
If you Google AARON Beighle, I'm the only one. There is a retired state trooper in Kentucky that lives about 20 minutes from me, but he doesn't have any social media. So I'm the only one. And I was not in an accident in 1996. He was the one that comes up every once in a while. But if you look up AARON Beighle, mostly LinkedIn, Twitter, and my email will come up, which is just my last name at uky.edu.
Awesome. Yep. That's Dr. Aaron Beighle, and definitely don't spell it the way it sounds. And for those who are on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, you can see the spelling of Aaron's name. And yeah, I just want everyone that's listening to, like I said, pick up the book, pick up your phone and connect with Aaron as soon as possible. If you're watching YouTube, either on Josh Temper's page or the YouTube for Teach Better, I appreciate you doing that. Love for you to push the like button or subscribe to those growing communities. And then, of course, at joshtemper.com, you can head over there, and I'll have all the links for Aaron's social media, but then also his brilliant book. And like I said, I hope that you take the time to connect and grow and hopefully have a little bit more movement and physical activity on your campus, and really dive into your physical education programs and see how you might be able to do things a little bit better, like Aaron said. So with that, Aaron, I just appreciate your time, your insight, your wisdom, and can't wait to see the creative things that you bring to physical education all throughout our country.
Thank you.